I'm making this on the subject of Sudbury, Ontario hospitals. Nowhere else but Sudbury. You know, this is a redneck Atlanta, Georgia, the north, where women are raped quite regularly, very acceptable in the community, and the police very often, most often, won't even lay a charge. And the doctor has the right to do whatever they want with the patient and get away with it. Very, very, very few people have the political power to get help in this country on any issue. But in Sudbury in particular, it's extremely dangerous. And when I was 19, I was told to get out of town by Joe Fabro, our mayor. And he said, you'll be much better treated in Toronto. And it was true. I'm not saying Toronto doesn't have rapists, but they weren't so easily gotten away with in Toronto as they were in Sudbury. My girlfriends were being forced to marry their rapist. And children abuse was so vile that, which I never tolerated. I was 7 years old when I bit my father and he had to go to the hospital for a tetanus shot because he was beating up on my brother and my mother. I don't take shit easily. And I'm a fighter by nature for human rights. It's just in my DNA. I don't know where it comes from because it sure didn't come from my family. And it didn't come from anything I learned in school. It's just in my DNA somehow. My great-grandmother said I was a throwback to the Vikings. But from what I know of the Vikings, they weren't particularly big on human rights. But what I want to just put on record for the children coming up, Sudbury community is beautiful wilderness being destroyed by pollution. And I'm not saying there aren't some good people, but what I am saying is that there's no political will amongst the community to stop the abuse. Now, I stopped my girlfriend father from raping her. I went to the police and they wouldn't do anything. So I decided, well, her parents probably cowards anyway, and so I threatened them with the police that and I screamed at her father. I said, you get your ass in that door and don't you ever come out again. And if you ever put a finger on Sandra again, you're going to jail. And I turned to her mother and I said, and that goes for you too, because you have cooperated with what he's been doing. That man is a pervert. And he never touched her again. In fact, I took her home with me. I said, you're coming with me, and I took her home. My father was a violent monster, but he was not a sex pervert. I'll give him that. And I told him what her father was doing. And my parents tried to help her over the years. They did. But she was so badly damaged. Her life was really tragic. But in the end, an intern at a hospital took her out and took care of her for the rest of her life. And she had happy years. But I so much shit in this city. And one woman had the gall when I talked about all my human rights. She said, I never lifted a finger to fight anything a day in my life and I had a wonderful life. Well, I didn't go after her online, but I was pretty upset. But then when she started on about how great Trump was, a sexist, perverted, racist like him, well, I let that go too. I had admired and really loved this woman. But when I started to see what she really was, I was getting more and more upset. And then finally she made fun of me online for my fight against pollution and diseases. And then she made fun of Biden for his stuttering. That's where I draw the line. Zero tolerance. You never attack anyone with a handicap disability. Not on my page, you don't. And we'll never be friends again, ever. I blocked her for life. Or she blocked me. I don't know who did which first. And then, yes, I did tell the story online, but I never told her name. And I still haven't told you her name. And I'm not going to do that. Because she's not the only one. She represents a legion of people. Millions of them. But Sudbury Hospital negligence is historically legendary. Rape in this community is so bad, we made the Globe and Mail as having the lowest amount of charges laid by police. Our police tolerate such abuse and bullying within their own ranks and cover up. Don't even get me started. So I pulled out of an 8-month attack, and I was skiing and I was well. And Dan suddenly got classic migraine symptoms. And I'm not going to go into that. But he was suddenly so ill, he was completely dysfunctional. And thank God I was well, because I could drive again. I hadn't driven for 8 months. And I had to do the shopping and do the groceries. And I was skiing and I was doing everything. And he was completely dysfunctional. So for the first week, I detoxed him. Because he waited for 4 days or maybe more before he even told me that he was sick. So I didn't know if it was food poisoning or what. But make a long story short, I eventually asked for friends online for their advice. Now, here goes the subject of hospitals. Anyone that knows me, that my experience with hospitals have been so horrendous that I reported to the police at the time, who refused to even make a report, which is typical in Sudbury. And I fled leaving Sudbury, and I never came back but once. And when I did, I was attacked by smoke bombs and death threats. And the Premier of Ontario, David Peterson, came to my rescue and helped me settle in Collingwood. All of which I wrote about in my autobiography. And for decades, I carried a letter in my wallet that said, "Attention police and ambulance. In case of an emergency, do not take me to a hospital. Throw me in the nearest swamp where I have a better chance of survival." And I did that, and I patted on the dashboard of my car, and I did that for decades. And I made sure I never gave a family doctor the power over my body again, because in Canada, they have too much power. So by not having a family doctor, I get to go to a clinic and I get to choose what drugs I take. They can't force me. And up to the point, they were forcing me to take drugs, yes. And those drugs were not helping me. They only made me worse. They were killing me. With the exception in Sudbury, there were 2 doctors out of 300. And I found one in a clinic, a Dr. Falcone, at LaSalle Clinic. And out of 115 doctors, he never once pushed drugs on me. And he understood clearly my Parkinsonism disease. And he made extreme efforts to help me the best he could and find out the cause of a problem, not mask the symptom with drugs, okay? Yeah. And at the hospital, Dr. Chris Bardot. He was the only doctor in Canada, and I've been in hospitals coast to coast, Vancouver, Toronto, carried in and carried out in paralyzing attacks. And that covers a lot of hospitals. And I talked about that in my autobiography. But Dr. Chris Bardot is the only one in Canada that said, "Trudi, you have chemical hypersensitivities." What's that? And he said, gas and diesel, for instance. He said they're going to make you very sick, whereas they won't bother somebody else. I said, how do you know that? And no other doctors ever told me that. And he said, I read American journals. Now that stuck in my head. But at the time I was so sick, it didn't connect, nothing connected to me at the time. And that was in 1984. And it wasn't until decades later that I finished the research on diseases caused by chemicals that I was able to expand on that. And that children are being diagnosed with muscular dystrophy and they have my disease. I'm not saying muscular dystrophy doesn't exist, but what I am saying is as a society we are being poisoned. But the point is that people who have known me for years, if I ask their advice, I'm asking for home remedies, herbal treatment, but don't tell me to go to a hospital. Now, Dan and I made a pact that if we're dying, we're not going to the hospital because of COVID. And I'm not telling anybody else to do that. It's my choice. But it was the negligence of a Sudbury doctor in treatment at the Sudbury Hospital that killed my mother. And they know that. Every one of the people that knows me knows that. And by the time Dr. Chris Barneau got involved, it was too late. He did use his influence to get her into St. Joseph's Hospice, where she was treated like a queen by Dr. Trepp and everybody there and staff. It was paradise on earth. So it came as a real shock when the only advice I got was to take Dan to a hospital. Now, the other thing I failed to mention is that he's a drug addict, recovering drug addict. The last thing I want him on is an injection. And you take a guy to a hospital with a headache or a migraine symptoms, what do you think they're going to do? Oh, let's give him an MRI. Not in Sudbury. Oh, let's do an x-ray. Oh yeah, they did an x-ray of my father for his chronic migraines after 15 years, and they did it of his ass. Well, the migraines aren't in your ass, they're in your head. He had a pretty good sense of humor about that, actually. He sent a letter to the Northern Life publisher at the time, and they published it. My father actually was a wealthy man, and he had a lot of political power in Sudbury, and he could have done a lot to help me, but he chose to use that power to get me boycotted from the very same media that originally had helped me, began to boycott me. Yeah, that was my father. But anyway, when I wouldn't take that advice, and I chose to take the advice of a pharmacist who had known him all his life, that would put him on medication, namely ibuprofen, an anti-inflammatory, and see if that helps. I would say out of 1 to 10, it was 10% successful in helping him. Cure? No. Is he better? Less pain. It's now been, this is his 3rd week. But anyway, the one person who suggested the hospital, well, I was upset with her, but I wasn't angry because I don't know quite how to put this. She's a loving, beautiful soul, but she's not the smartest whip on the block when it comes to dealing with problems. Let's put it that way. But the other one grew up in an area that she knows a lot about herbal remedies and home remedies. So she was the last person on earth I expected would tell me to do that. But on top of which, I certainly didn't expect her to vilify me and attack me for being so opinionated that I never take anybody's advice and I always follow my own chapter. And, well, that just rocked the hell right out of me. I'm a victim of the Holocaust, and I suffer from flashbacks. And if I am attacked, you can trigger my disease. And it did. I plummeted into despair. I got so sick I went into 3 attacks. And I have not been able to recover. And I'm trying to find a way to pull myself out of this. And the only way is to vent. And vent I did. You attack me online in public, you get attacked back online in public. I fight fire with fire. I learned that a long time ago, right from the day I was born. It's the only language they understand. Shall never make that mistake again. You want to call me out, you do it in private. But don't you dare ever do it in public. And if you're going to attack me for something that's true. I don't follow my advice on anything. I research the science. Now, I don't believe in taking any drugs for pain because it masks the symptoms. But I'm not stopping him from taking drugs. I don't like it. And I'm encouraging to cut back. I'm certainly not encouraging him to take more. And I don't care if I'm dying. I am 100% drug-free for 37 years. And I live with the pain of like cancer patients take morphine for when they're dying. That's the kind of pain I live with. So if you're going to attack me and you care about me, I'm a very sick person. You are going to take me down. And you're going to do me a great deal of harm. But I'm going to come back. And I'm going to haul out the tanks to swat a fly. So I am not an arrogant, opinionated bitch, I want you to know. But a bitch I am. If you're in trouble, I'm the bitch you want. If you're being treated abusively, I'm the bitch that you want. And if you're sick, I have a wealth of knowledge, and I will do everything I can to help you. I am the bitch that you want, because I will fight tooth and nail to help you. I'm going to get over this at some point. The friendship will never be the same. I'll never trust her, ever. That's done. So she had her little victory. She succeeded in plummeting me into shock and suicidal despair, post-traumatic stress syndrome, flashback nightmares, and it destroyed my newfound health. The Parkinsonism attacks. I'm in pain and full-blown, crippled, can't ski. But I'll come back. Because that victory is only temporary. I will never live long enough to know what put the bug in that little brain, so severe that I should warrant such an attack. But I say this, when the chips are down and you're in deep doo-doo, I would have always been there for you, and I would have helped you, while the bitch you think I am would never have lifted a finger to help you. And perhaps in time you'll take a good look at the damage you did to someone you loved who loved you so well. And why did you do it? I don't want to know the answer. It doesn't matter for me, because the damage has been done. But I want you to look at why you did it. For yourself. And for your children. And your grandchildren. That hopefully you'll never do that to them. And this isn't really much of a COVID update, but we in the North are doing a lot better than everybody else. That's the bottom line. Yeah, we got a few idiots, but by and large, only about 600 compared to your 6,000 and millions in the States. And I do know that for sure the vaccine will be every year, just like the flu shot. And some people are taking allergic reactions, and eventually they're going to have perfected it so that it won't be as toxic. So if I get a cold, I get lung infection within 3 hours. I get COVID, I'm dead. And that's okay. I've done everything I intended to do in my life except get rights for Parkinsonism, which is a disease caused by being poisoned, whether it be a virus or chemicals. But this is a society that thrives off poisoning people and then giving them drugs to make them feel better. And that's not going to change. The fact that I was so dumb as to think I could change that was really goes to show you just how stupid I was. But I tried. So, what the hell? I tried. And now the mask, the gas mask, is defective. I fought to get new gas mask equipment for the men in the mines, for the military, all with the help of Americans and MSA in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I decided to get a new mask, not because I really needed it, because the one I have from 2017 is perfectly good. But, I'm still here, I'm alive, it's perfectly good. I just wanted a new one. Well, God must have had a reason, because my God, it is so inferior that I'm right back where I was 40 years ago. And of course, as usual, Sudbury is as useless as tits on a bowl. But MSA in Pittsburgh have contacted me and they want the mask back, and they're going to look into it and they're going to investigate it, and they're taking my complaint seriously. But I'm not going to fight this. I'm not going to the media. I'm not going to fight this. It's up to the unions, who frankly don't give a shit. Don't get me started on that one. But anyway, this is almost a half an hour and it's long enough. And I'm not doing it for you people who are alive right now. Because you're a lost cause. I can't reach you. But I am doing it for the children 200 years from now. That all the information to save your life and protect you from getting all these diseases caused by being poisoned was known in 1775. Yes. We're not a very nice species, we humans, are we? But there's a few good ones. I just can't find any right here, right now, but there are a few good ones. But Sudbury, you're despicable. The situation with the homeless in Sudbury is a crime. This community has more money than anybody else in Canada. It's a shameful disgrace. And all those children being raped and abused, and the police, the brutality, and the seniors being robbed of their homes legally by secret filing. Shame on you, Canada. Shame on you. And God help the Americans. Because truthfully, their government agencies are really the best in the world. And they will help me, and they will help you, and you're not even an American. They have the most unbelievable humanitarian mandate of any agency on the planet that not even that bastard Trump could destroy. So you stop being so stupid and killing your own people with your own stupidity. And boycott China. And destroy that damn communist government. And ban all wet markets. This could have easily been stopped 25 years ago. But by the time you kids get to see this video 200 years from now, the mutations will be so great. There will be so many vaccines. Your arms are going to look like a pincushion. But I think of myself as your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother. And you are all my children. And I love you. It's just the adults that make me sick. Anyway, I've nothing more to say. I have to pull out of this. You know, words can be healing, or they can destroy. Words can be uplifting and a blessing from God, or they can be the sword that slits your throat and slices you to pieces and takes you down. So be careful what kind of words you use. Because I didn't deserve that. I did not deserve that. And God help her. Because I won't anymore.